Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, August 12th through Sunday, August 18th, 2024. This week, kind of like what I mentioned last week, it is definitely time. It's a time of transition. We are pivoting, turning, transitioning. A big part of that is Mercury retrograde, and Mercury will continue to be retrograde for much of the month until, I believe, August 28th. So that definitely continues. I think we've all felt that throughout last week. And so, yes, that does continue this week. I always say, though, that in my opinion, the most dysfunctional part of Mercury retrograde is the very beginning because it catches us off guard. Even those of us that pay attention to these types of things, it takes us time to adjust to that new energy, that new apparent direction of a planet such as Mercury. So I really think the beginning tends to be the most dysfunctional. We do tend to adjust on some level to that energy. I almost said to the dysfunction. It doesn't have to be dysfunctional though. It's just about going within. It's a great time to maybe rest more. Maybe you are tired and you need to sleep more. That's totally fine. That's what Mercury retrograde is all about. It's also about processing things. We may encounter people from our past. That's kind of to be expected. I think what often comes to mind is previous lovers and relationships and things like that. But think of other people as well, like your family, right? Your family is from your past, right? You have known them for a long time. So issues pertaining to family as well can be more pertinent, more relevant with Mercury retrograde as well. This week we have a couple major events. There's actually pretty much at least something going on every other day, astrologically speaking. So let's dive into it here. So we start out we start out the week with a bit of. There's definitely some intensity today. Sun is in Leo, Moon is in Scorpio, and we actually have a first quarter moon, a first quarter square. With the moon in Scorpio squaring Sun in Leo. This one is interesting because Sun is in its home sign in Leo still. We're still technically in that middle trimester of summer in the northern hemisphere. So Sun is right at home in Leo, very powerful. There's a lot of strong, masculine, fiery energy. But that's being contrasted from Moon in Scorpio. Moon is in detriment in Scorpio, or excuse me, Moon is technically in fall in Scorpio. So the feminine energy is kind of estranged. We may be lacking that nurturing energy or that receptive energy. We may be a bit kind of out of our comfort zone with Moon in Scorpio, especially emotionally. And with this square dynamic of Moon squaring the Sun, this is very volatile energy. This is really going to be excellent energy. Typically, it would be excellent energy for starting something new, but keep in mind Mercury is still retrograde, and so we may be starting something new, but it may be focused on the past, or it may be something that we've started before, we've done this before, or again, maybe it is something new, but it's based on the past somehow. There's some kind of connection with the past there. But yeah, again, this is volatile. Moon in Scorpio on its own is volatile, but when you are squaring that, it's like the sun and the moon are kind of battling, and really the sun is much more powerful than the moon right now. But Moon in Scorpio is very, very powerful energy too. It's just very outside of the box. It's very dysfunctional, very intense for sure. And really, both Leo and Scorpio are intense. So having a face off like this. We may feel edgy, restless. It may be a really great time to get some physical activity or to change something, to change your perspective or to change your habits or things like that. So yeah, definitely. This will definitely be a crazy day. Definitely a crazy start to the week. Very volatile, very active. Expect the unexpected. Especially when we're combining Mercury retrograde with this intense new quarter moon, which is really, I always say quarter moons are usually the part of the lunar cycle that actually has the most to do with beginnings, in the sense of like physical beginnings, like physical activity. It's much different than the new moon, which we had a week ago, which is usually a more kind of ethereal new beginning, less physical. Okay, going ahead 2 days to Wednesday, August 14th. This is the day where Mercury actually enters Leo again. So Mercury is still retrograde, of course, and it's traveling backward from our perception, going backward into into Leo. So that really means that there's some kind of unfinished business that we have in Leo. Where does Leo fall in your chart? Because that's where, maybe, we've been doing our best, but maybe we've been neglecting that area. Maybe there's something there that we haven't fully appreciated or understood. That's okay. That's why this process happens, so that we can get more understanding or more clarity or maybe a different perspective on that part of our lives. So let's say Leo is the top of your chart, it's your 10th house, then there's something in your career or with your reputation that, we need to go back, we need to focus on that more. Is it the bottom of your chart? Then it's your home and family. Is it around your ascendant? Then this is all about you, and you may be going through a lot of self-discovery and kind of just processing a lot in general right now. Is it your 7th house? Then it's going to be your relationships, partnerships, etc. It just depends on where this falls in your chart. On a general or communal level, this is Leo, so it's about pride and expression, self-expression, right? Not just pride, but also fun, creativity, playfulness. Are we lacking that in our lives? Are we neglecting it? Are we not understanding it? That's where, we can go back now and get a more thorough understanding of that area. I will say too that with Mercury retrograde entering Leo, I think Mercury retrograde is a little bit less intense in Leo than it is in Virgo. Not only because we're not in the first part of the retrograde anymore, we're getting deeper into it, and so we've had time to adjust. But also, Mercury being exalted and retrograde at the same time, I think is very intense, very potent. I think there's more potential for deep understanding, but there's also more potential for dysfunction. So we are leaving that energy. We're going into Mercury retrograde in Leo, which is, it has its own kind of different intensity, but I do think it's less intense since Mercury's technically not, in fall or in exaltation or anything like that in Leo. It's kind of like neutral territory for Mercury. Okay, going forward a couple more days to Friday, August 16th. This one is kind of a background energy. It's a little funky, but according to my notes, we have an imperfect sextile between Pluto and Neptune. Both Pluto and Neptune are retrograde right now, but one or both of these should start to change their speeds because one or both are preparing to turn direct. Not quite yet, not this week, not next week. I'm just saying that because of the changing speeds of their retrogrades, this is as close as they're going to get for this particular sextile. Does that make sense? Like, it won't become exact, but it does get very close. As you can see, we're within 1 degree from an exact sextile between Pluto and Neptune. So I thought it was worth mentioning. I don't usually mention sextiles on this channel anymore. Well, at least not for the forecasts. But I would be much more likely to mention a minor aspect like this with outer planets such as these, because outer planet aspects are so rare, especially Pluto and Neptune. These are the two slowest planets that we are currently aware of in our solar system. And so it is very rare, and it has huge impacts. Even a minor aspect like this, it has huge impacts on kind of the background energy, like the era that we're in. It affects the long-term circumstances. What else? It affects us globally and kind of historically, I guess you could say. So with Pluto sextiling Neptune, this is a harmonious aspect. There's some kind of deep harmony going on, which I know sounds crazy because, look around, like, it's hard to find harmony on a grand level, but there may be something there. It may be kind of ethereal or very big picture, not just because of the nature of the planets that are involved, but also the signs that they're in. Pluto's in Aquarius. It's actually preparing to go into Capricorn soon, and Neptune's in Pisces. So these are the two last signs of the zodiac. They're very non-physical. They're very focused on ideas and concepts. So I know this may sound a bit wishy-washy because it is vague. It is very abstract, but there's some kind of harmony going on that global collective level. And this too, because these planets are so slow, this is a long-term aspect. So really, we've been feeling that energy. Whether you're aware of it or not, we are in the midst of that energy now, and we will continue to be for weeks as well. So yeah, I think that's Oh, I haven't talked about Sunday yet. That was Friday. Okay, Sunday, we do have a couple more things. So for Sunday, August 18th, this is where Mercury catches up to the sun, I guess, or technically sun catches up to Mercury. Technically, the sun initiates this aspect because Mercury is retrograde, so it's traveling backward from our perception. Sun is traveling forward as it always does from our perception, and they meet at 26 degrees Leo. I always like to mention this because this is a key moment of the Mercury retrograde phase or period. I believe this marks the halfway point of Mercury retrograde. So if you're not a fan of Mercury retrograde, at least you're halfway there at this point. Maybe that's motivating, or maybe it's not. I don't know. But yeah, so this conjunction, I think typically we think of conjunctions as really strong aspects, right? Like both planets are agreeing, they're coupling, they're strengthening each other. This is not always the case with the sun. The sun is so bright that whenever a planet is conjunct the sun, it's completely dwarfed. It's completely, blinded. It's not visible to the naked eye at all, because it's so close to the sun. It's like burnt up. So what happens, when Mercury in particular conjoins the sun is that intellectual energy, the mental energy, is almost like burned out by the sun. So I would say on this day or around this day, give or take a day, I guess you could say, I would say that we may be prone to mental burnout. Our nervous systems may be a little bit fried right now. We may be more prone to being really busy and to learning a lot and being very productive, and that's all well and good, but as long as it's sustainable, take a break, drink some water, get a breath of fresh air, etc. I was gonna say go for a smoke, but I guess that's probably not ideal. Whatever you do to relax and calm down, I'm not here to judge, as long as it's truly healthy for you, right? So that's all I would kind of recommend or preach today. We may be prone to that kind of burnout. But what makes this way more interesting is that Sun and Mercury conjunct at 26 degrees Leo both are squaring Uranus at 27 degrees Taurus, and this will continue into Monday as well. We're going to start the next week with this type of energy too. So that's where this gets even more spicy. So everything I said still applies, but with Uranus involved, making these square aspects to Sun and Mercury simultaneously, there's a huge potential for sudden awakening, sudden shifts. Expect the unexpected, especially because Mercury's retrograde, as it's involved in this square aspect. This could be a great day for realizing something new, having a completely new, perception. Maybe there's something huge that whatever it is that we're talking about here, it's been there. It's our awareness of the situation that's changing. Does that make sense? So it's not always the situation itself that's changing with this kind of aspect. It's our awareness of the situation. Uranus is technically visible to the naked eye. I know that's not really known about, but it is. It's just that we weren't aware of it until I think 1781. So that just shows you that's the nature of Uranus. It represents things that they've been there. They're there. It's just that we didn't look at them the right way. We didn't understand them. We weren't aware, right? So that's what's going to happen on and around Sunday. Be prepared for perception changes. It's a great day for learning a lot or having epiphanies, which is exciting, but that can also be distressing because with that new knowledge comes responsibility, and then that's where the change comes. The change comes from you or maybe from other people, because once they're aware of that new information or that new perception, then maybe the status quo is no longer good enough. Maybe they're aware of new potentials, new opportunities, etc. And then that's where the change comes. That's where the action can come. But that comes from your free will. That's a choice that you may have to kind of reckon with. So very exciting, but also it can be a burden, especially for those of us that don't like change, that want things to stay the same. This can be distressing. So go with the flow. We don't really have a choice, as someone just recently commented. That's very true. I think we are not. I think these transits are greater than we are, if that makes sense. So we have to just kind of go with it and make the most of it. Learn something new. Maybe you have the potential around this day well, really always, but especially around this day, you have the potential for revolution, for some kind of huge new awakening, and maybe leveling up to something much greater than what you've had recently. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have for you. Next week, there's a lot. There's a lot to talk about next week. Jupiter squares this Saturn, Sun enters Virgo, and we have a full moon in Aquarius right before the Sun enters Virgo. We've got that Aquarius full moon. So lots to unpack next week. I hope you join me. And yeah, have an excellent week. I'll see you next week.